Only Bill Belichick and Marvin Lewis have been with their teams longer than Sean Payton and Mike McCarthy. McCarthy, ironically, of course, worked in New Orleans before going to Green Bay. Ken Trahan, sportsNOLAtv, and the New Orleans Saints still have their coach. A decade in, Sean Payton announcing last week that he is staying with the New Orleans Saints. He'll honor his contract and remain the highest paid coach in the NFL. And over an hour, he spoke to the media, answered every question they had. It was forthcoming. It was nice. Brian, I know a lot of people have been in a position where they've said, well, where's this been? Some have said it was disingenuous. And I tend to believe it doesn't make any difference what you think. The fact that he is still here and the fact that he did answer all the questions and handle himself well and showed some personality is a good thing. And I think the fact that he's still here is a good thing also.
Yeah, I would agree. I think those people that probably feel that way would like to see more of that from Coach Payton. But that's just his DNA. I mean, that's who he is, and it's what's made him a successful coach. But look, the idea that he's coming back, it is a strong message that this organization still feels he's got it. He's got what it takes to get the job done, and I believe he does.
Well, if you look at his accomplishments in New Orleans, which we'll do right now, and take a look at his bio, his decade here in New Orleans, you understand that he's accomplished quite a bit. Certainly the most accomplished coach in Saints history. One more win, and he passes Jim Mora for the most wins as the head coach in Saints history. But he's done what Mora couldn't do, winning the postseason and won a Super Bowl and got to an NFC championship. 6-4 in the postseason, won the Super Bowl, NFL Coach of the Year. Ricky, your take on Payton remaining here?
Well, I mean, he's a great coach, and he's a great offensive coach. So my whole thing, I think that the Saints got the best offensive coach that they can get. I think that he just needs to find somebody who can coach the defense, and they need to find somebody who can bring some great defensive players in. If you do that, I think that the Saints will be back on top.
All right, so is it the coach, or is it the players, or is it both when you talk about defense, Brian? You had Gary Gibbs here. Of course, you had Greg Williams here, Steve Spagnuolo, Rob Ryan. We'll have another guy coming up, and Dennis Allen or someone else. Probably Allen, at least at this point. So when you turn it over that much, when you haven't had a whole lot of success, is it the coach or the players or both?
Oh, I think it's both easily, Kenny. I really do. And it's a perplexing issue to me is that this Coach Payton is such a brilliant offensive guy, considered one of the most outstanding minds in the professional game. And why they can't get it right on defense is it has to be, Kenny. It's got to be coaching and players, drafting, free agency, everything. When you think about this, the four players that are still hanging around from his very fledgling, his first class of 06, they're all offensive guys. There's not a defensive guy there. And I know maybe it's a minute point, but they haven't been able to hang on to defensive guys through his whole tenure.
But Brian, I'll tell you one thing you see. The Saints went 7-9 the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't care how
and
great
3 of the last 4, regardless.
Right. So I don't care how great offensive coach you is. If you ain't got nothing to stop nobody or play defense, Coach Payton gonna get the same thing he done got the last 2 years.
I agree.
So you got to work on finding some great defensive players, somebody who can beat people up front, somebody who can cover people. If you go out there with the same old thing gonna happen to you. I know they're probably looking at Lovett Smith and different defensive coaches, but you can bring whoever you want to bring in here. You better bring some studs in here to play defense. If you don't, you're gonna have the same result.
Well, I guess that's what I'm trying to say here is that it's puzzling why they can't get it right on defense. If you look back, and I charted the 10 years under Payton. If you look at the 09 season, that was a 25th ranked defense, okay, in terms of yards surrendered, okay? But what they did is they took 39 takeaways, all right? And they scored off those takeaways, and they provided good field position, Kenny. So, I mean, you don't have to be greatly ranked around the league, but you do have to play situational defense, and they have not done a good job of that for many of the years under Sean.
Well, what's puzzling is that only in 2 of the years since Coach Payton has been here have the Saints done anything defensively by and large. The 2009 season with the 39 turnovers they forced, and of course Rob Ryan's first year where they were ranked 4th in the league in defense, and then that disintegrated very quickly. So it's a pattern for whatever reason. And Ricky, it's not that they haven't tried to invest on defense. They've drafted a whole bunch of guys on defense in the early rounds. They just haven't hit on those guys. That's been the biggest problem.
Well, I mean, you know, and that's something because you got to know defensive players, you know what I mean? You just don't go and pick a defensive guy. You got to know a guy going to win his one-on-one battle, and I think that's what you need more. If you go look at the team from Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, those guys up front, they win their one-on-one battle. You can see yesterday, all the games you've seen, the game that those teams, they got guys up front that can beat other people. We don't have that. I mean, we got to run schemes to try to get to the quarterback. We don't have nobody like Haywood and those guys just can take one guy and can beat the guy. So we got to have schemes all of the work, and that's tough when you got schemes.
The offensive success is predicated on they have drafted some good players, they've signed some good players, they've had playmakers like Jimmy Graham, Marcus Colston, Brandon Cooks now. Running backs have been solid, nothing special, but solid, other than Deuce McAllister, who when healthy was exceptional. But the common denominator, Brian, is Drew Brees.
Right, and Drew Brees and Sean, Ken. I mean, when you put those two minds together, Drew can make most players much better that play on that side of the ball, and they haven't had that good success defensively. You know, I talk about yards, and yards are kind of misleading, although they have been historically bad in 2 of the last 3 years here in terms of yards surrendered. But it's the points per game, and when they yield 21 or less over the course of a season, they're going to the playoffs. Historically, that shows if they're in a 20 to 21 points a game, they're going to the playoffs. It's when they get up to 26, 27 points a game, that's when they're not going.
Well, the Saints are keeping their coach. Other teams have decided to move on from their coaches. Several coaching changes to address in the NFL, Ricky, and let's take a look at them. Joe Philbin, of course, in his interim, gone, and Adam Gase has already been hired from the Bears in Miami. Cleveland looking for a replacement. The Giants, the Eagles, the 49ers, the Buccaneers, and the Titans also in a search right now. As you look at those jobs, Ricky, which 1 or 2 of those jobs are the jobs that are good jobs in your mind?
Well, I mean, you know, that Cleveland and the Giants job is a good job, and the 49ers is a good job. But, you know, getting rid of the coaches that they got rid of, you know, I expected that. I mean, and just like Lovett Smith, a lot of people are mad because they called Lovett Smith on the phone and then, you know, treat him right. But, you know, like I said, I don't think he did a great job. I thought it was time for him to go. And, you know what I mean, regardless of how you tell a guy, I mean, but he didn't do a good job. So he got what I thought he deserved. And the rest of the coaches who got fired, I was looking for those guys to get fired.
They were 6-6, Brian, and they lost their last 4 games. They were in contention.
That's right.
And it's not like they played great teams other than Carolina. They just didn't get it done. I think the jobs on that list that are intriguing would be the Giants and the Eagles.
I agree totally. The Niners is still a sexy place to go, and I agree with you. You know, part of the deal in Tampa Bay, apparently, you know, the Glazers didn't want to lose Dirk Cutter. Apparently, he's a guy that's being, you know, he's shopped himself around with some job openings here. And Miami, they've already filled it. San Francisco. Hey, how about Coughlin interviewing in Philadelphia? Don't rule out Tom coming back if the right situation presents itself.
That was a big surprise because I know he was a good coach at the Giants. He won 2 Super Bowls, but I didn't see nothing that he did offensive defense. I thought he was a guy that put good staffs together and let them handle their job and let them call their defense and offensive plays. And it's just surprising that a guy like that, not a real position guy that got a job. And plus his age, you know, I mean, he's up to about 63, 64. So that was good to see him get a interview.
Adam Gase, by the way, the the son-in-law of Joe Vitt. So that's pretty intriguing to keep that in mind. Does that say anything moving forward? I don't know. Sean Payton's very loyal to the guys that have been with him for quite some time, including the likes of Joe Vitt. So I would be surprised if anything changes there, but you never know, as we'll see in the very near future with what transpires. Bottom line is, the jobs that are open are not going to be great jobs for a reason. That's why they're open, and I think that San Francisco could recover fairly quickly because they have more money under the cap than anybody, with all of the players that retired in their primes and Jim Harbaugh leaving, of course. So we'll see what happens there and with the other positions. Today's show presented by our good and great friends at Premier Honda, located at 11801 I-10 Service Road in New Orleans East. It's the new year, and Premier Honda of New Orleans has a resolution to get you the best deal in 2016. Stop by or visit them online at premierhonda.com for all of your Honda needs. NFL playoffs when we return on Sports NOLA TV on WHNO TV 20.